Alright, so to talk about the second concept of why we do not necessarily perceive and experience all of the environment that might be around us, I'm going to branch it off into two kind of separate categories. One being a psychological or evolutionary psychological side, and then one being an anatomical and functionality side. So to start with the psychological, I'm going to kind of touch on selective attention and just the ability of us as humans to be able to block certain stimuli out and focus on one or two stimuli or tasks in order to integrate and perceive them more effectively. Because without that ability, we'd be overcome by so many stimuli around us that we wouldn't really be able to process it all or function very effectively. So a couple examples of this are something like white noise. So this heater I have that I sleep with during the winter is a great example of that, because although it has a really soft hum that you can hear if you pay attention to it, for the most part you're really not even having that stimulus re-registered across your sensory systems and into your brain. Another most common one is how clothes feel on your body. So things like the tightness around your shoulders or the hat on top of your head, you really don't pay attention to unless someone reminds you of it, and then that's kind of all you can think about. Lastly, would be something similar to nose blindness. So in situations where people may be working in areas with strong smells, like an anatomy lab or garbage disposal, uh, your brain is able to just shut out those smells because you're so used to it, where you don't need to focus on it anymore. It just becomes such a standard stimulus where it really doesn't even get processed. This sort of this notion can have advantages and disadvantages. So for advantageous reasons, it allows us, like I said, to focus in on important tasks at hand without being distracted by or overcome by too many stimuli. But in certain environments, there could be disadvantages related to this, where we may be exposed to adverse things like toxic chemicals or other nauseous stimuli that we should be paying attention to, that all of a sudden we aren't even registering in our sensory systems, and then can have damages to our body down the road. But related to nose blindness or specific sensory reception is some more anatomical functionality components of it. So firstly, one of the most basic concepts is how we as humans are tetrachromatic. So that means that we have three different types of cones in our retinas, and they are able to perceive only certain color combinations. So although there may be colors out in our environment, we as humans aren't able to perceive them, while many fish and reptiles, lizards, are tetrachromatic, and they're able to perceive more colors than what we as humans are able to. So just, although not completely accurate, here would be an example of a really diverse range of colors that tetrachromatic organisms are able to perceive, while an organism that only has two types of cones would be dichromatic, and that usually comes in the form of either blue and violet or orange and yellow. So being colorblind to red and greens. Not dichromatic does not mean just black and white. Otherwise, other than that, there's things that as we age we're not able to perceive anymore. So the quiet buzz of a television at a super high frequency, or a dog whistle, young children and I guess still myself are able to perceive that super high frequency, while older generations aren't able to do so. And then lastly is how taste, so gustatory cells and olfactory sensory cells, are extremely specialized to taste only certain things or smell only certain things. Even though the gustatory system really has sensory perceptions all in the same areas for bitterness, saltiness, sweetness, and